What's up, everyone? Tyler DeLuca back here for week 6 of the college football season. You know what time it is. I got my top 3 matchups that I'm personally looking forward to for this week. Let's get into it. First matchup, number 20 Kentucky going to number 1 Georgia. Obviously, Georgia's number 1 for a reason. I mean, they are Georgia, and they still are a very, very good team. But this feels different. This feels like they're almost vulnerable in a way. This does not feel like the dominance that we've come to expect from a Georgia football team. And yes, they are still number 1, and they deserve to be up at near the top of the rankings. I don't know if I would personally have them at number 1, but they feel vulnerable. Last week they survived at Auburn 27-20, but one thing that Auburn really did a good job of was running the football, and a lot of that was quarterback runs, but they ended up averaging 5.1 yards per carry. So now I'm looking at Kentucky. I'm thinking, man, what does Kentucky do a really, really good job of? And the answer to that is pretty simple. They do a really good job of giving the ball to running back Ray Davis, who is an absolute talent. We're talking about someone who averages 7.8 yards per carry, 8 touchdowns so far on the season. If they can get him going and then allow themselves to open up other parts of the offense, this could be a game. This could be another game that we see that is close for a Georgia team that we really haven't seen struggle with having close games repeatedly. Obviously, there's a grind within the SEC schedule, but not something to this level that we've seen with Georgia in recent years. It's just been dominance. But now there's a little hole in the armor. There's a little wound that's starting to open up, and I don't know if it's this week. I think it's possible that it's this week. I wouldn't bet on that, but it feels almost like they're bound to slip up at some point, and with the ability of Ray Davis for this Kentucky team, it could be this week. Do I think it will? No. Is it possible? Always. We're talking about college football here, but I'm really excited to see what Ray Davis does. This could be a game that makes him. A game that absolutely makes them if he comes out and does his thing against this Georgia defense. I think Georgia wins, but I'm really excited to see how they handle Kentucky's running attack. All right, game number 2, number 10 Notre Dame at number 25 Louisville. This one is an interesting one for me because Notre Dame did what they needed to do against Duke. They got in there, they got a win. It wasn't, the most dominant win by any means, but they did what they needed to do, and I can't fault them for that too much, and especially with it being a bounce back game on the road, a ranked opponent that hasn't really seen that level of success. I can't fault them too much for it, right? Now they go into another game against a ranked opponent in Louisville. They're number 25. I'm going to be honest. I don't know if Louisville really moves me yet. Really haven't moved the needle for me. Yes, they're undefeated, but they haven't had that big test. And if you've been following, the test games are a big thing for me. I'd like to see teams that are battle tested, and I don't really see that from Louisville so far. Last week they survived NC State 13-10, but it also kind of goes back to where they did what they need to do, so they're undefeated. You got Notre Dame coming to town. If you are a top 25 team, prove it. It's that simple. That's the storyline of this game for me. If you're a top 25 team, prove it, and that doesn't mean necessarily go out and beat Notre Dame. That's not what that has to mean. Just prove it. Make this a close game. Make Notre Dame fear a little bit. That's what I want to see from Louisville this week, and that's what I'm really interested in kind of seeing going forward now that this is their test. This is the game where it's like, okay, let's see where we're at. Let's see how close we are to the teams near the top of the polls. I'm excited for this one. I think Notre Dame probably comfortably wins, but I'm excited to see what Louisville gives in return after Notre Dame throws those first couple punches. All right, my game of the week and my personal every year game of the year. Number 12, Oklahoma. Number 3, Texas. Red River rivalry. I couldn't be more excited. I have to talk about OU extensively on these episodes, but you can see it. I'm a Sooner-born, Sooner-bred OU fan, born and raised here in Oklahoma. So this is the game. Every year, this is the game, no matter what the circumstances are. But this year, the circumstances are that both these teams are undefeated. This game has not had higher stakes in years. in years. Both these teams are on their way bouncing back. For Texas, as we know, Texas is back. We've heard it. Texas feels like they're back. OU's bouncing back from one of the worst seasons that they've had, period. One of the worst seasons that they've had. Brent Venables is looking to assert himself as back to being a top program in the nation, and Texas is trying to do the same. And now is the time for both these schools to prove that the years in the past, they don't matter. This is now, and both these teams are ready to prove it against their bitter, hated rival in the Cotton Bowl. I mean, come on. It's the game of the week. I can't wait for this, but let's look at the actual game itself. First off, throw last year's game away. And I'm not saying that because I don't want to ever think about that game again, but throw that game away. OU did not have a quarterback capable of throwing a pass. And Texas, on the other side, is a way better team, as is OU. Throw that game away. These are not the same two teams that played in the Cotton Bowl last year. This is an OU team that has the most competent defense that we've seen for years here in Norman. It has been years since there's been a defense that's competent, and one of the things that has really impressed me the most is the ability to adjust, because we saw last week against Iowa State, Iowa State was having a very, very solid first quarter, almost first half, until adjustments were made. And when those adjustments were made, they were shut down the entire rest of the way. And that's something that we haven't seen OU be capable of doing in years.